The prairie wind carried more secrets than words out there. Dust rolling across the valley and brushing against a small wooden cabin where a lone woman lived with her boy. Folks in town said she didn't take kindly to visitors, and they were right. Every night when the sun dipped behind the buttes, she'd lock her door and whisper a prayer, not for peace, but for distance. Then one evening, as the sky burned orange, a shadow rode in from the west. A man on a tired horse, coat torn, eyes empty as a dry well. He'd once been a name folks feared, a ranch hand-turned gunman, a man who'd lost too much to remember how to smile. The road had taken everything from him, but his hunger for a place that didn't push him away. He rode slow up the path, reins slack in his hands, and when he saw the cabin's light through the window, something inside him softened. He hadn't seen a home fire in weeks, maybe months. He dismounted, hat in hand, and knocked once. The door cracked open just enough for her eyes to show, calm, tired, careful. "Ma'am," he said, "I'm just looking for water. Maybe a place to rest my horse." She didn't answer right away. The boy's shadow flickered behind her, small, curious, holding a wooden toy. She looked at him, then back at the stranger. Finally she said it, soft but sharp enough to stop the night in its tracks. "Please, don't come inside." The man blinked, surprised. "I mean no trouble," he said. "Just, I know what men mean," she cut in. "It always starts with water, then a seat by the fire. Then they never leave until something's broken." Her words hit him harder than a bullet. He lowered his hat, nodding slow. "You've had trouble before." She didn't deny it. Didn't need to. The quiet around her said enough. He turned back toward his horse, ready to ride off, but before he did, she spoke again. "There's a well behind the barn. Draw what you need. Don't take more." He did as told, filling his canteen while the moon climbed higher. From the corner of his eye, he saw her silhouette through the window, standing watch like a soldier at her post. As he poured water for his horse, he noticed something carved into the well's side. "Trust is earned by distance." He stared at it a long time. Maybe she'd carved it herself. Maybe someone else had. Either way, he understood it, because that's all he'd ever known. People who kept their doors closed, their hearts locked. When he looked back one last time, the cabin light had gone out. Only the sound of the wind and the creak of the old rope from the well remained. And for the first time in years, the cowboy felt something he couldn't name. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sorrow. It was something heavier, something like shame. He climbed into the saddle, whispering to himself, "Didn't mean to scare her. Didn't mean nothing at all." Then he rode into the dark, leaving behind the woman who had seen right through him with just 7 words. "Please, don't come inside." The next morning the wind was colder, and the sky above the prairie hung low with gray. The cowboy hadn't slept. He kept thinking about the woman's voice, those 7 words echoing like a bell through his mind. He told himself it didn't matter, that he'd been turned away before, but something about her tone, quiet, firm, tired, stuck to him like burrs on a trail coat. By dawn he'd made up his mind. He turned his horse back toward that cabin, a single loaf of bread and a small tin of coffee strapped behind his saddle. He told himself it was just courtesy, just a thank you for the water. But deep down he knew it was more. When he reached the cabin, smoke curled thin from the chimney. The boy was outside, stacking wood, small and wiry with sharp eyes that didn't trust strangers. The cowboy raised a hand in peace. "Morning, son," he said. The boy stared, silent, then called toward the door. "Ma!" She came out, wiping her hands on her apron, the same guarded look in her eyes. "I told you not to come inside," she said flatly. "Ain't trying to," he replied, lifting the loaf of bread. "Just brought something for the road. My thanks for the water." She hesitated, then nodded once, taking the bread from him. Their fingers brushed, just for a second, and he felt how cold her hand was. "We don't need charity," she said. "It ain't charity," he answered softly. "It's bread." Something in his tone made her pause, like she'd heard honesty for the first time in years. The boy shifted beside her, curiosity winning over fear. "What's your name, mister?" he asked. "Elias," the cowboy said. "Elias Boone." The boy nodded. "I'm Tom." The woman's voice hardened again. "Tom, inside." The boy obeyed, but not before giving the stranger one last look. When the door shut, Elias turned to leave, but her voice stopped him. "Why are you really here, Mr. Boone?" He thought about lying, but his voice betrayed the truth. "Because I'm tired of being unwelcome." Her eyes softened just a little. Then she said, "Out here, welcome gets people killed." He didn't argue. He just tipped his hat. Maybe so. But kindness keeps him living longer. For a moment, neither spoke. The wind stirred the dry grass around their boots, and the sound of the boy, humming inside, drifted through the walls. Something in that moment felt almost human again. Two broken souls standing between fear and forgiveness. Finally, she whispered, "The well's still open if you need water." It was the smallest gesture, but to him it was more than welcome. It was hope. Elias nodded once, then turned toward the barn, the corners of his eyes stinging against the wind. He didn't know it yet, but that morning had already changed him. As he filled his canteen, he glanced again at the words carved in the well, "Trust is earned by distance." And he smiled to himself. Maybe trust didn't always mean closeness. Maybe it just meant coming back, even when you'd been told not to. He mounted his horse and rode out slow, the sound of her voice following him like the promise of rain over dry earth. That evening the sun sank behind the ridge, painting the sky with fire, and Elias Boone found himself riding back once more toward the lonely cabin. He told himself he was chasing daylight, that the storm clouds rolling in from the west were reason enough to stop. But the truth was simpler, lonelier. He just didn't want to spend another night with no sound but his own breathing. When he reached the fence line, he saw her out there hanging laundry in the dying light. She looked smaller against the vast land, her hair pulled back, her dress worn thin by years of hard work. When she spotted him, her hands froze. "You again," she said quietly. "You don't give up easy, do you?" Elias dismounted, his boots crunching dry earth. "Storm's coming," he said. "Didn't figure you'd want to face it alone." She gave a tired smile. "I've faced worse." He nodded. "Maybe so. But sometimes worse gets tired too." The words hung between them, soft but heavy. The boy ran out of the cabin shouting, "Ma, look! The sky's purple!" She hushed him, her eyes never leaving the stranger. Lightning flickered in the distance, long and silent. "You should leave before the rain starts," she said. "The road'll turn to mud." "I've been through worse," he answered. "You said that yesterday?" she replied. "Maybe we both did," he said with a faint smile. She looked away, but he saw it, the crack in her armor, the weariness behind her guard. The wind picked up, snapping the sheets on the line. He stepped forward and helped her take them down before they blew away. She hesitated but didn't stop him. When the rain finally came, it came hard, soaking them both. The boy ran inside laughing, and she stood in the doorway watching the storm wash the dust from the land. Elias stood beside his horse, drenched but unmoving. She called out, "You'll catch your death out there." He looked at her, eyes soft under the brim of his hat. "You told me not to come inside," he said. "I did," she whispered, "but maybe I was wrong." He didn't move, waiting for her to decide. The thunder rolled, shaking the air. Finally she stepped aside, just enough for the lamplight to spill into the rain. "Just till the storm passes," she said. He nodded, slow and humble, stepping across the threshold. Inside, the air smelled of coffee and firewood. The boy sat by the hearth, eyes wide. Elias stood near the door, dripping and uncertain. "You can set your coat there," she said softly. "Thank you," he answered. For a long while they said nothing. The storm raged, and the sound of rain on the roof filled the silence. When she finally spoke, her voice trembled. "You want to know why I didn't want you in here?" He looked at her, waiting. She turned toward the window, the firelight tracing the scars on her wrist. "Because the last man I let in never left. Not until he took everything." Elias didn't ask who or how. He just nodded. "Ain't gonna take nothing," he said. "Never do." Her eyes lifted to his, steady, cautious, but searching. "Then maybe," she whispered, "you can stay a while." The thunder eased, and the boy began to hum again, the same tune as before. Elias stood there, a man who'd run from kindness all his life, and for the first time he didn't want to. The storm outside passed, but something gentler took its place inside that cabin, a silence that didn't feel empty anymore. She closed the door against the wind, and the lamp between them burned warmer, steadier, like two hearts learning how to trust again in a world that had forgotten what mercy felt like.